99.1. So, Allan has court tomorrow. After I published the last video, lo and behold, I got coronavirus again. Been sick in my room. But anyways, if you're new to this channel, we are just conspiracy and we just wish to conspire to bring heaven down to earth. And if you know Tim Pool or Luke Radowski, please send this video to them, because it has the answer to some of the problems they talk about. Stick around. We're going to hear from Viva Fry and Barnes to help introduce us to this answer.
How in the world can walking your dog by yourself outdoors constitute a threat to anyone? I mean, but this is what happens when the judicial branch fails. It's not a surprise that the executive branch will fail. They'll always grab power when they have a pretext to do so. The legislative branch has mostly been asleep at the wheel, but the worst thing is that the judicial branch is the branch supposed to step in and fix this. And unfortunately, in large parts of the entire Western world, the judicial branch has proven itself utterly toothless and useless. But at least there's signs that it still has a bit of a heartbeat here in America.
Yeah, notice that imposing a curfew, then allowing you to walk your dog and saying that that's a compromise is the equivalent of pooping on your chest, scraping half it off, and tell you the rest is a candy bar. Well, that's not exactly the analogy I was thinking of, but nice visual there. Now I'm, okay. No, Robert, you are 1,000% correct. It's the judicial branch failing. People saying Viva file lawsuits. If you're saying that, it's nice that you're a new face to the channel. Not that I filed the lawsuits, but we've gone over them. In Quebec, they sued for the curfew last year, claimed it was a constitutional violation on an injunctive basis, so different criteria, presumption of validity, yada, yada, yada. The court said no. They sued on the face masks for kids, not for adults, the elderly, long-term. They sued for kids. The court said no. However minimal the risk is there. They sued federally on the quarantine hotels. Court said no. Those are fine too. They sued. Now, what else did they sue for? Everything. The one they haven't sued for yet is the vaccine for air travel and train travel. But don't expect them to overturn that either. The judicial branch has failed. It is a trifecta of incestuous government figures, all looking to bonify their power. I don't even know if that's a real word. You got the government electing their medical appointees who give them advice. It goes to the courts. The courts say, well, the experts said so. So who am I to say this to the people who elected them, appointed them? It's a circle fest of judicial executive overreach, and it's gotten to us to where we are.
Now we just listened to Viva Fry and Robert Barnes talk about the judiciary. Let me talk about it with you for a second, because this is something I've been talking about for years. It's something that I've realized for a long time. Here's what the problem is. Everybody basically sees it. Not many people know how to articulate it. And the people who are on the right and the left, they don't see it at all because they're participating. But you have the right and the left, and they're fighting each other, okay? And the reason the answer is with the judiciary is because the judiciary is not supposed to be politicized. They're supposed to be able to uphold the law without any political views coming into play. That's kind of the idea of having an independent judiciary. And the reason that our system of government was set up this way is because the legislature is known for becoming corrupt throughout history, throughout all of time. The executive branch is known for becoming corrupt, even more so than the legislative branch. And so the judiciary, the thing that's supposed to keep the judiciary from not becoming corrupt, is that they live among the people. They live among the people that they pass judgment on. And this is why the judiciary is supposed to be a check and a balance to the corruption of the legislative and executive branches, is because the judiciary is typically the one that gets the kickback first. When the people start fighting back, it's not the legislature who's in the courtroom taking their property from them. It's the judiciary that signs off on that. So typically when people get upset, that's the first thing they see. And so this is why the judiciary is supposed to be independent. And when you lose an independent judiciary, your society becomes lawless. And it's lost. It's lost. And the problem that we have today is that you have the Democrats and the Republicans, and these two sides are fighting with each other all the time. And the biggest problem is that the Democrats accuse the Republicans of violating the law and committing crimes, and the Republicans accuse the Democrats of violating the law and committing crimes. We see it all over. If you want to watch Democrats be accused of violating the law, just turn on Fox News. If you wish to watch the Republicans be accused of violating the law, turn on NBC. It's just that simple. Now let me tell you something about street gangs and street politics, because Jesse Ventura wrote a book called Democrips and Republicans, basically referencing Democrats and Republicans to the Crips and Bloods, a gang out in California, which was created by the FBI to dismantle the Black Panthers.
Well, I just think to save our country, we need to abolish the political parties, make them political action committees. And there's one thing we could do to start off with. Why do we put, and I refer to them as the Democrips and the Republicans, because they call the blue states Democrats. Well, that's also the colors of the Crips, blue. And naturally, the Bloods color is red, and the Republican states are called red states.
And for those who don't know what you're talking about, these are two of the most infamous gangs. They started in Los Angeles, the Bloods and the Crips. They want to kill each other, and they wear these colors, the blues and the reds. So you're basically likening the politicians in Washington these days to gang leaders and gang members. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true, and they're worse. Let me explain why they're worse. The Crips and the Bloods, the street gangs, well, they can be devastating to a certain small part of the population. The Democrips and the Republicans, the Democrats and Republicans, they affect everybody in this country. And they've been in charge for over 100 years. So how can they say they're not responsible for the horrible state that our country's in today? Our debt is beyond control. We've got politics now where, there, as Jeb Bush said, there's no compromise anymore. Nothing gets done. If Obama wants to do this, the Republicans are opposed to it. If the Republicans want to do something, the Democrats are opposed to it. The best thing we could do is on every ballot remove all gang names and gang symbols. Allow them to only run on their names. That way it becomes important that the voter educate themselves. What does John Smith stand for?
Now, in street gangs, to avoid war, what happens is that when somebody in the gang violates the law, the gang takes care of their own gang member, because they don't want to go to war with the other gang. This is how common street thugs politic. You think civilized society could do any better? Maybe. Because here's the way I see it. I see people on both sides who break the law, and none of them get held accountable, because they won't be held accountable by their own party. And the reason it's so important for their own party to hold them accountable is because it's like when somebody has a son who's a moron. I was watching that movie House of Gucci, and Al Pacino is like, he's an idiot, but he's my idiot. You see, when you have a child or a husband or a family member that doesn't always know the best thing to do, and sometimes other people find it easy to pick on them, It's like it's not okay for everybody else to pick on them or discipline them, but it's okay for you to do it because you're family or they're yours. And it's the same thing with politics. Okay? In my personal opinion, when Democrats break the law, they should be held accountable by Democrats. It's the Democratic Party who gave that individual the power and the position to be able to break the law in the first place. When Republicans break the law, they should be held accountable by Republicans because it was the Republican Party that gave them the power and authority to be able to break the law in the first place. And this is just my opinion, but it creates a more civilized society where more people are held accountable when they break the law. It's really just that simple. And you see, way back in the day, before you had everybody divided into these tribal camps of left and right, guess what? People, for the most part, were way more objective than subjective. They realized when their own party members broke the law, and for the most part, if somebody got caught, like Watergate, they just stepped down rather than facing the consequences. What happened to that? What happened to that era? And you want to know what happened? Here's what happened, is that the media made it okay to demonize each other. To make each other look non-human. They're promoting violence on both sides. The January 6th, all the peaceful protests across the country. They're promoting violence. They're saying it's okay to hurt people or lock them up that disagree with you. And the more we fight each other, the more we all lose. But the real reason why the judiciary is the answer, because it doesn't matter what the legislatures legislate. It doesn't matter what the executive branch executes. None of that can have any impact on you or your life without a judicial official saying, hey, that's against the law. We got a judgment. And if you look at what's going on in New York right now with Bill A00416, where they're talking about locking people up just because they're suspected of having communicable diseases for up to 90 days without a judicial signature or judicial review at all. Guess what, judiciary? They're looking to remove you. Anyways, I don't feel the best. I don't feel the worst. This is a walk in the park compared to when I got sick in July. But I'm not going to be able to make it to support Allan tomorrow. And hopefully this gets out before tomorrow. And tomorrow's the January 6th. Allan has court at 9:30 a.m. in Buncombe County. But if we don't get people together to start making sure our courts right down the street uphold law between individuals like me and you, and they start dispensing law and truth and justice, if we can't do that, how do you expect to hold any of these big criminals accountable? Ever? That's why, in my opinion, the best solution is for people to get down and start watching their local courts and learning the very basic and fundamentals of law, like what it means to have something verified and what an actual complaint is. What actually gives somebody reasons to drag you into court. Because look at why they're dragging Allan into court. They're dragging him into court for calling the cops. because they believe he's violating the court order. They're not dragging him back into the court where he's supposedly violating the court order, okay? Because somebody called DSS a bunch of times. He can't help that because he has guns. Really? That shouldn't even warrant being dragged into court. That's ridiculous. Anyways, I hope people learn something from this. Hold judiciary accountable. We are just conspiracy, and we just wish to bring heaven down to earth. Hopefully, other people can conspire to do that with us. One world love and peace. Sorry, I'm sick.